Hey guys, welcome back, and hold on, this isn't Wintertide, this is Springtide. What the—
Oh, hello there!
So yeah, look at me, I'm doing another ETF video. Alright, I'm a sellout, aren't I? You know, I'm Dukesy.
Ignoring that the point of that video is that I'm going to make other videos from ATF, not that I'm entirely quoting ATF, but that's beside the point.
No, the point is, there's a new update, 1.2.0, and it's probably the biggest update since release, which isn't saying much, because for map updates all we've gotten is the Omni port, but that's beside the point. The Alumni update, alright, that's what this is. So, you know, I'm gonna talk about the Super Box separately, because, one, that's just how I've always done it, and two, I want to talk about the map specifically in this video, so let's do that, shall we? Now, first things first, obviously, what better place to start with the Alumni update than Sunrise? That's not what you were expecting? Well, I don't really care because this is more important to me, and the Alumni thing is way bigger anyway, so don't worry, about 90% of this video's runtime is going to be about that. One of my main issues with Wintertide that I even brought up in my last video was the way that they put all their attention on the Alumni base and left the city, which, you know, is the place where most people actually roleplay at, to rot. And while this is still partly the case, it would appear that they've somewhat taken the community's feedback into account and actually have progressed the city even further with this update. The Alumni also has a sort of trading town thing going on, which, that's cool and all, but we're talking about the city, so let's not get sidetracked, shall we? First of all, obviously, their base is really close to the city, considering, you know, it was supposed to be a college, but I just never really, you know, realized that until editing this, and here's the base, and here's before the base got added, and as you can see, it's pretty much just all forest, which makes sense, but yeah, there you go. Also, don't question why Santa was chasing the green Michelin Man. I'm sure there's a totally reasonable explanation for it. Obviously, they messed with the roads. They got rid of the old underground road, which was some sort of tunnel that felt out of place, and instead they added a separate underground section, which looks like it could be leading to a subway or something. Don't get too excited, though. There's an invisible wall behind the truck. But because of that, they messed around with the placement of a few buildings. For example, they moved the cafe next to the over-under behind the over-under, and they also moved around the burger joint next to the train station to add a road where the stairs used to be. Last thing that I noticed was the sort of park area, which nobody really cares about because they also added a new building. Don't look at the ceiling texture on the inside, don't do it, you won't be able to unsee it, don't do it! And if you haven't noticed, the entire map went from snow to grass, which they're about 3 months late to, but I can't really complain because, quite frankly, this feels like the next step up from Overcast format, and if I had to assume, this is probably the initial plan going forward into Wintertide, but it just so happened that the game was releasing in winter, and hey, people like Deep Six, so let's just make more of that. And, I don't know, maybe there's something that contradicts this in the lore, but overall I just like the general shift in environment. It looks really nice and feels a lot more natural, even though it does kind of look like a Last of Us clone now. One other thing related to Sunrise that I would like to note is that some of the areas that have been paved over for the Greater City update just feel bland, flat, or generally like they're missing something. Now, obviously, they had to make the city connect somehow, and it just so happens that changing a lot of the fundamental architecture is gonna mess with the original plan for the city, but hey, while that is no fault of the developers, I hope to see these areas filled in with later city updates, and I felt like I should bring some attention to them, because these just look off. I had an idea for a transition here, but it ended up just me being loud into my microphone, and I already made a loud equals funny joke, so we're gonna skip ahead and just get to the main point of this, the Alumni base. That's right, the center point of the Alumni update, and really quickly I just want to mention that my recording fucked up here, and for whatever reason it looks like it's 480p. Which admittedly is how I used to record my videos, but I don't know, it just doesn't really feel right to have a 1080p video with 480p footage, so I figured I'd point that out, and what I'm going to do, basically, is discuss my own thoughts about the update as a whole, as well as the base itself, and then let the rest of the video play out with probably minimal editing for those who, for whatever reason, can't see it for themselves. Maybe they're banned, or, I don't know, they're on vacation and don't have a computer with them. So with that out of the way, discussion time. For the most part, I actually really like this update. Up until now, it seemed like the devs really had no idea what they wanted to do with this game, and for how much they've changed around the city, it seems like they're at least somewhat confident in their choices here. I can also entirely understand how it took them 4 months to release this. I mean, the Boulder Cove expansion took around that long, and Mirage had a way less detailed art style than Wintertide does, so props to the devs for that. But while I draw to that comparison, the difference between these two events should absolutely be mentioned. For one, the Boulder Cove update was a massive expansion to the public city, whereas this is a giant faction base or civilian outpost sort of blended into one, and I should also mention that the current Sunrise City in Wintertide seems to rival that of the fully completed Boulder Cove expansion, so given that their efforts are so scattered, it would make perfect sense that the city is left in such a uncompleted state. Another massive difference between the two is that in the months leading up to the Boulder Cove update, they released the 4th of July and Canada Day mystery boxes, along with the 2020 Summer Rain event, so the community at least had other stuff to look forward to at the time. Not to mention that we had the prop placer, vehicles, and all of this was coming off the back of the highly anticipated Cliffguard release. Also, I know that I bring up the prop placer and vehicles quite a lot, and while I do think it is fair criticism, especially when even Chad himself admitted that the latest release was designed more so with the prop placer in mind, I think it'd also be fair that I mentioned that neither of them were in Mirage on release either. They were added 2.5 and 3 months later respectively with the Super Box. Those Mirage players were really spoiled with updates, weren't they? Also, dogs were only added like 3 weeks after the game came out, and I figured I'd mention that as well because just imagine Mirage without dogs. Alright, that would just be way more depressing. Also, I'm on this sort of side tangent. Anyone remember when Cliffguard just came out and people figured out that they could build inside of the Mesa with the prop laser? No, just me. Well, that was a fun time, and honestly I wouldn't hate seeing a underground city in ATF-8, but that'll be a suggestion for ATF-8 Suggestions Part 2. Coming probably never, so subscribe for that. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up this unrelated tangent now, but one last thing. They got rid of the root cellar from Mirage, and I don't know why it's gone, but if you had a saved build, it'll be missing now, and it can't be placed anymore, so I don't know, I just thought that it was weird enough to be brought up, and I don't know, I figured I'd mention it. Anyway, where was I? The Omniport's release seems to parallel that of Cliffguard's in a way, with both of them being released in March, followed by a huge update later in July, and now June, respectively. I understand that the developers generally were further into development with Mirage when the Boulder Cove expansion came out, and probably had a more firm understanding of the game's future, its art style, and so on, but I just can't help but point out the similarities that I found when making this video. One thing that's not similar at all, though, is that while the Christmas boxes have opened throughout the past half a year, anyone who joined back into the community following January when the boxes went off sale have had basically nothing to look forward to in terms of new items, excluding the freebies that are randomly dropped with each box, seemingly to remedy this. And while that's certainly a solution, what happened to Mirage's way of handling this? I mean, it encouraged people to explore the map and got the community together. Sure, it was flawed in, people could typically just go onto YouTube and search up the new items locations 5 minutes after they're added, but it still got people out of the main hotspot for each server and discussing the game. It was fun. But even if the map was designed more so with the prop placer in mind, so more empty places, the world just seems so empty right now and just lacking in terms of, you know, making it seem like a real place where people have actually been living in. Also, face update. And I think that random items just around the place in random, relatively obscure areas could certainly help with the world building, and I don't think that's gonna really interfere with people building bases or anything. At least, that's my take on it. I'll probably discuss this more in my video about the Christmas boxes whenever that comes out, so stay tuned for that, I guess. Anyway, with that somewhat unhinged rant out of the way, I would like to express that I'm quite optimistic about the future for this game. Overall, it seems like this was the big thing that the devs were putting their time into, at least they made it out like that, and I'm excited to see what's going to be next for the title. Overall, I think that the Alumni base has been a nice surprise, and forgive my IGN reviewer coming out here.
It gives me goosebumps every time he does it.
There are points where I thought I finished looking around the place, only to genuinely gasp in awe as I open a door into another building that was entirely furnished. Furnished. That being said, though, I'm still not entirely sure that I agree they should have spent this much time on one update rather than building up multiple places at once in a slower fashion, especially given that one or two of the buildings in the Alumni's compound are still only visual. Where have I heard that before? But as a whole, I do admire the amount of effort that they put into this update, and I don't know, I just hope that this isn't something to hold over the community for another 4 months until Halloween. And if that's exactly what they are gonna do, make it a Sunrise update, please! So that's the majority of the video done. From this point on, it's just gonna be me exploring the Alumni base in astonishing 480p. So, the reason that this happened is because I ended up clearing my OBS settings by mistake, and ended up resetting my recording quality to this, and I didn't realize that until I already finished going through the entire fucking facility. So, unfortunately, because I don't want to spend another 40 minutes going through this entire area, this is what you're going to be left with. And there will be a video about the Christmas boxes coming within the next week or so, so stay tuned for that. Overall, yeah, that's about it. I don't know how to end this really, because this is just the end of the commentary and not the video itself, and, I don't know, I'm not exactly a commentary pro. You know, I should be. I've been doing this shit for like 3 years, but, we win some, we lose some, you know. At the end of the day, we'll get there eventually. So yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. Enjoy the 40p, look around the entire alumni base, or don't, I don't know. Maybe you hate it, maybe you're gonna click off and go watch something else, so, hey, if you're gonna do that, skip to the end card and, like, look at the videos there. I'm sure they'll maybe pique your interest or something. Otherwise, fuck, I guess that's about it. Thanks for watching, I guess.
What the dog doing?
Yeah, there's these large elder gods, and they were killed. It's called pacing. That is not how you make a fucking story. You don't kill gods in your second game. You don't kill them in your second game.
3 boxes!